Your ability to lift maximum loads, which is to say to go heavy, is critically tied to your fatigue level. That's a sciencey way of saying if you go fresh, you're stronger. And thus whatever you think is heavy is heavier. And whatever adaptations you get from heavy training are better because you did it fresh. So there's a certain truth in saying that unless you go heavy first or early in a workout, you actually can't go heavy later. It's like almost an impossibility. Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for RP Strength. Today's video is to try to convince you to do your heavy lifting first in every session, in actually through the week, and a couple of other nuances before you do your higher rep light work. I'm not just going to be telling you to do that. I'm going to be explaining why from a deep science perspective. And when I say deep, I'm talking about some Marianas Trench type of shit. Some kind of anglerfish with that shit in his face, and you like touch the shit and then he opens up and eats you. That deep. Even deeper than that. The fish can't even go down that deep. Luckily, you're safe from the fish, but who knows what the fuck else is down there. Heavy first. There are 3 things I'm going to try to advocate that you try in your training today. Don't try these all today. Some of them you could. And you could program these in with your RP Hypertrophy app, link in description, but you plan. So stop playing and get in there. But you don't have to use the app, no big deal. It's just a cool tool. You could do these with app, with no app, no big deal. There are 3 things. In a given exercise, if you're going to alter the load, that is some of the sets you're going to do lighter, some of the sets heavier, I implore you to do your heavier sets first, after warming up, of course. Heavier work sets first, lighter work sets after. So maybe 2 sets of 5 to 10 on squats, and then 2 sets of 10 to 15 on squats. Now, you don't have to break up your rep ranges. You could just do 4 sets of 5 to 10 or 4 sets of 10 to 15, no big deal. But if you're going to use differential loading within an exercise, which a lot of people do, I say you do the reverse pyramid, and instead of going up in load, you go down in load over time. Heavy first, light later. Secondly, in a given workout session, if you have exercises you do that are heavier, you like to train in the 5 to 10, 10 to 15 rep range. There are other exercises that you like to train lighter in the 15 to 20, 20 to 30 rep range. I implore you to try programming in the heavier exercises in most cases first, and then after, in your later exercises for that same muscle group, going higher rep and lighter. And lastly, that logic that goes from within an exercise to between exercises in a session actually applies to between days in a training week. So in your next training mesocycle that you build through the RP Hypertrophy app, stop saying that, Mike. Fuck, we get it. You want money because you, or, insert ethnicity here. Mm-hmm. Let's say you train chest Monday, chest Thursday, our perennial example. Really the only 2 training days that matter and muscle groups that matter. And what I think is an advantage, a small but notable advantage, is to train heavier on Monday and lighter on Thursday, but not the other way around. As the training week progresses, what I want you guys to consider doing is going and doing your heavy work first earlier in the week, lighter work later in the week, but ending that week a little soon to give an extra day or 2 of recovery before you start that next week. So basically it's like heavy, then light, then a little extra rest, and then you begin your next week. That's how I think program design can work really, really well. And that's it. See you guys next time. No, wait. Sorry. I have to justify these things because we're a science channel. I can't just make shit up. I do make a lot of stuff up. I'm capable of having an erection without medical supervision. Scott the video guy doesn't laugh at me all the time, just like he did now. Things like that. In any case, good reasons to go heavy first. Your ability to lift maximum loads, which is to say to go heavy, is critically tied to your fatigue level. That's a sciencey way of saying if you go fresh, you're stronger. And thus whatever you think is heavier. And whatever adaptations you get from heavy training are better because you did it fresh. If you go heavy, and by that I mean something you can lift in the 5 to 10 rep range, let's say, After multiple high repetition work sets, let's say sets of 10 to 15 reps, you're not going nearly as heavy as you could if you were fresh, which, given enough fatigue built up by those earlier sets, really isn't heavy at all. It's heavy in the sense that you can do it for 5 to 10 reps, but the only reason you can do it for 5 to 10 reps and not 10 to 15 is because you're tired. If you were fresh, it would have been the same weight you did for 10 to 15. So there's a certain truth in saying that unless you go heavy first or early in a workout, you usually can't go heavy later. It's like almost an impossibility. Here's a quick example. Let's say you can dumbbell bench the hundreds for 8. And what's up, big dog? Look at you. Bitches in the gym just waiting till you rack them hundies so they'd come up and just beg. Dope. But let's say you did another kind of workout. You can do 100 for 8 maximum fresh. Let's say you get the hundies in your hands after 4 previous work sets. You did the whole warm-up and then 4 working sets, close to failure for each set. A working set with 70 pounds, it's like 25 reps. A work set with 80 pounds, a work set with 90 pounds, and a work set with 95 pounds. You may have seen people train like this. Many people train like this. When you hit the hundies on set number 5, so it's 70, 80, 90, 95, and then you're like, all right, fellas, fucking hand me them hundreds, and your fucking boys load you up and all that shit. TikTok, the whole thing. You ain't getting that shit for 8 reps. You're getting it for 4 reps, maybe, because you're really tired, not rocket science. But that also means at a deeper physiological level, the fastest twitch muscle fibers, the ones that are recruited to lift the maximum loads, the ones that are the most prone to muscle growth of your whole muscle tissue, they're actually a little tired because faster fibers are many things and not just growth prone and massive and ready to lift heavy loads. They're also insanely fatigue sensitive, the opposite of fatigue resistant. You can run 1 mile with your slower twitch fibers in your legs, and the next mile feels exactly the same. You ain't sprinting fucking mile with your fast twitch fibers because you're going to be dead by the end of that mile and there's nowhere to go. But even if you could recover, you can't get that much out of them. And faster fibers get tired big time for a long time, and they take huge hits to their abilities, which is to say that if you train lighter first and then go heavy, the purpose of going heavy in a grand sense in hypertrophy training and muscle growth training is to get you jacked because you seem to respond well to heavy loading, and heavy loading is a great way to get jacked. So if heavy loading is not even in your repertoire, you're like, dude, I never do sets of 5 to 10, I do sets of 10 to 20 or whatever, whatever. This video is not for you. Don't worry about it. But if you do like heavy work and you seem to get a lot out of it, if you get to that heavy work after 4 sets of light work and you do 4 reps instead of 8, that difference in those reps mostly comes down to the fact, not that your slower twitch fibers are used up in fuel or your nervous system's unavailable to contract them for you, or they're really tired in some other way, they have too many metabolites in them. The slower twitch fibers, they turn over real fast. They get rid of fatigue real quick. 30 seconds to a minute after you're done lifting, your slower twitch fibers are like, bro, let's hit it again. Same performance. It's your fastest twitch fibers that account for that reduction from 8 reps to 4 reps. Because they're so tired, they activate for like a rep and a half or some shit, and they're like, dude, fuck that. And they just kick out. I ain't got it. They cramp, they do all this kind of crazy shit. And that means they're not generating a ton of tension over the course of that set, not nearly as much as if you did it fresh. Where do you think these magical gains come from? It's not fairies that fly in at night and flap their little fairy wings and sprinkle anabolic dust, though, halotestin sprinkling fairies aren't the worst thing in the world. It's because you're applying fundamentally tension to the target muscle fibers and the cells themselves. It's per fiber that tension is applied. If your fastest twitch fibers are too tired to do much, they don't get a lot of the growth. They do not stimulate their own growth. And thus, you get slower twitch gains, which is to say shit fucking gains. And I don't mean shit, I take that back. Worse gains. Versus, if you get a lot out of heavy training, doing heavy first and not coming into the equation tired. This is especially true if you get a lot out of heavy training. Some guys do heavy training, they're like, meh. But some guys, especially for some muscle groups, like for me, for my chest loves heavy work. A set of fucking 6 hard is like fucking awesome. Set of 8, amazing. Set of 12, I'm like, yeah, I could do better. If you get a lot out of heavy work, this matters even more for you. So it's a big deal. This idea that you should lift heavy when you're least fatigued applies set to set. So if you're going to do an exercise with two different kinds of loading paradigms, you do the heavy loading first, light loading after. It applies exercise to exercise, which means if you're doing heavy exercises first, that's good. Lighter exercise after, that's good, versus the reverse. And it also to some extent applies to the entire week, which is to say earlier in the week you go heavy, later in the week you go light, and then rest a little extra. That also has the same or similar logic because the fatigue of going super hard, especially with high reps and high volumes, sits with your fastest twitch fibers the most. So that applies at every single level of analysis. Big deal. Another benefit of going heavy first. That's not it. That's a big benefit, but that's not it. There are more. Your stimulus to fatigue ratio on lighter sets can improve markedly after you do some heavy sets first. In a sense, nothing prepares you for having amazing locked-in technique where you're feeling out all of the mind-muscle connection that you're supposed to. Nothing prepares you better than that than a few heavy work sets beforehand. You can see this in real life anytime you want with many exercises, but two of them are real obvious. Do pull-ups and do a few sets of weighted pull-ups, couple of sets of 3 or 4 reps or set of 5, even one set of 5 on weighted pull-ups, pretty close to your 5 rep max. Rest a normal amount of time. Take the extra weight off, put it down. Then do your first work set of unloaded pull-ups. I promise you, 2 things are going to happen. 1, the shit is going to feel easy as fuck. And 2, you're going to be able to connect with your technique and your muscles in a way that was just not likely if you had done that high rep set first. Going heavy first potentiates the shit out of your ability to get a ton out of the lighter sets afterwards. Another thing to try this on is dips. Do a few sets of weighted dips. When you take the weight off and do free dips, bro, it's a different feeling and a good feeling because not only does your technique feel crisp, but you're able to re-architect your technique dynamically on the spot to hit the right muscles, leaning back a little bit more for your triceps if you want, forward a little more for your chest. Your body really knows what's going on, and it knows it better after you've done some heavy sets first. If you go right into your high rep work, the first set or 2, like they feel great and all, but it's kind of like I'm just kind of surviving here. I'm just kind of doing the job. I'm not really connecting. If you reverse that paradigm and you go light first, it does not feel better when you go heavier. If you do a set of 20 in the hack squat with 315 pounds, if you put 405 on the hack squat, another plate, that set of 12 that you were supposed to do, first of all, we'll talk about this in a little bit, might not happen because you might be too fatigued to get the reps that you want, but also not really necessarily going to make that next set feel a ton better, especially because it's now a heavier set. You want to feel different for heavier sets. You want to feel low fatigue, real strong, like you have tons of energy in reserve. That's not how you feel after a set of 20 fucking hack squats. You might have a decent mind-muscle connection, but your ability to dynamically change your technique under heavy load might not be any better. So the overall workout tends to feel better if you go heavier first, lighter after, versus the opposite. Here's another benefit. You think, okay, heavy work first is dope, but I want to get really good performances into my higher rep sets, which drive a lot of volume, metabolites. I really like them. I'm really PRing on them. I don't want to go heavy because it's going to make me tired for the high rep sets right after. Ooh, but is that true? Let me give you a scenario. Before the scenario, it is my supposition, my presumption, my hypothesis, and my belief that you can get comparable high rep performance after a few sets of low reps than you can fresh. So you get kind of free benefit, sort of, at least from a volume and performance perspective, from those heavy sets that if you didn't do them, you're like, I'm not going to do these heavy sets. I got to focus on my rep work. Your high rep work would go just about the same if you did the sets or didn't. Because on the one hand, the sets heavy make you tired. Yeah, sure. But on the other hand, they potentiate you. They wake up your nervous system. They give you better mind-muscle connection. Your technique is more fluid, and they wake up your psychology as well. And then that's an up-tilting factor. And the two kind of tend to cancel out in a lot of scenarios. Now, the scenarios is that you're not doing 5 sets of heavy work. You're doing like 2 or 3. And it's not like sets of 9, 5 sets of 9. It's like sets of, well, somewhere between 5 and 10, but usually closer to 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, some shit like that. So here's an example. I leg press 5 plates, 495 pounds, and I get 15 reps on the first set. Cool. Little mini PR, close to failure, all is well. Or as I warm up for the leg press, I warm up past 495 pounds, doing just a double on that. Then I do a single with 585, and then I rest for a while, 6 plates. And then I do 2 work sets at 585. And if I can do 15 at 495, for me, that conversion is basically like about a set of 8 fresh on 585. So on leg press, instead of going my first set 495 for 15, my first set becomes 585 for 8. My second set is 585 for 6. So 2 sets, 8 and then 6. Then I take a plate off, and now it's 495 on the machine. And I have found, through coaching tons of other people and myself included, that after a few heavy sets like that, if you go back to your sort of typical working weight, you tend to get the same number of reps or pretty fucking close. Because remember, you're a little fatigued, but you're also more potentiated. You're more ready for that high level of performance. And to be honest, psychologically, when you unrack a leg press with 495 first as a first set, it kind of feels fucking weird and heavy. You're kind of scared of it. Your knees feel strange. Your hips feel strange. If you've done 2 work sets of 585 already, when you go to 495, that first unrack and that first rep, you're like, bro, I could fucking launch this thing through the moon. I am in total control. I'm not afraid of this weight. I'm overqualified for this shit. And now it's just a matter of me getting really good mechanics and really pushing it. In my experience, you can typically do roughly the same number of reps after a few sets of heavy than without it. So in this scenario, let's say I get, 495 for 15 on that first set. After 585 for 8 and 6 respectively, that's 14 total repetitions at 585 pounds that I managed to squeeze into the workout somehow. Remember, your muscles grow based mostly on tension perception. 14 extra reps in the leg press at 585 pounds, man, that's going to make a fucking difference. But if I had tried to slide that on the end, I would have never gotten 14 reps. In the beginning, though, you say, oh, hold on, but the heavy is going to interfere with the lighter. Not if you do it for relatively low volume. So you can check that heavy box and get a lot out of it. Acutely for that workout, pay no cost at all. Your performance is the same on everything else. It's like free 14 reps at 585. That's fucking dope. And it happens because of a concept called potentiation. The physical system, your anatomy, your nervous system, technically, your psychology, all wake up after a few heavy sets and all right, what's up? But it's like, usually if you go heavy and then just leave, they're like, nothing, see you later, sorry. But if you have some light work after, your body's like, oh, hell yeah, bro, this shit is going to be easy as fuck. And that's the way it works. Now, if you do high reps first, like you just go straight to 495 for 15, you can get great results. No problem at all. But you can't go heavy later. Right? Nobody's doing 585 for 8 after they do 495 for a set of 15 and a set of 12. Fuck that. And because heavy first doesn't really affect light performance after, if you're going to do heavy work anyway, why not just like fucking 1 stone and 2 bird that shit? You don't really pay a huge cost. Now, there are different kinds of costs of training heavy. So underlying this whole video is your decision. Do I even want to go heavy? I'm not saying go heavy and then go light. I'm saying if you go heavy and then go light. Because yeah, like enhanced injury risk and joint and connective tissue wear and tear. Maybe it's not your best stimulus to fatigue ratio, rep range, whatever. But if you do go heavy, don't wait till later to go heavy in your session. Don't wait till later to go heavy in your sets, in your session, or in your week. Go heavy early, go light after. The RP Hypertrophy app comes with dozens of pre-made programs from 2 days of training per week all the way up to 6 days of training, with specialized programs included for shoulders, arms, chest, back, legs, abs, and glutes, each one with male and female options. You get them all and can use them as often as you like, even building off of them to make your own customized versions for only about $1 a day. Click on the link in the description of this video to get started. Number 4 advantage is that heavy earlier in the week also has advantages here. This applies on the set level within an exercise, heavier work first. It applies on the exercise level if you have like heavy exercises to do, like let's say you've got squats and you've got leg presses and you've got leg extensions. Leg extensions, you just typically don't go heavy. Squats, you go mostly heavy. Leg presses, you go either way. If you do leg extensions first, then leg presses, then squats, maybe you're doing that for stimulus to fatigue ratio management, injury management, so on and so forth. Totally fine. But if you're going to go heavy in the squat, then squatting first, then leg press. And then after that, you do leg extensions. And you will see people doing this backwards. I think mostly that's wrong. I legit see guys warming up with leg extensions, then 4 sets of 15, then 4 sets of 15 leg press, and they're like, all right, time to squat. We're going to work up to like a max set of 5. And you're like, why? It's not even a max set of 5 anymore. Who are you playing with? You're so tired. It's not a fucking max set of 5. You're not going heavy. So if you're not going heavy, why go heavy? It's like someone wakes you up at 11 p.m., you fell asleep at 10:30 and they're like, hey, you want to go to the club? You're like, dude, I'm fucking in my pajamas. It's going to take a little while. This is going to fucking happen. Wrong place, wrong time. So if you're like, hey, I'm super tired from my workout I just did, and someone's like, do you want to go heavy? You're like, no, that doesn't make any fucking sense. So it works on that level as well. And it also works on the week to week to week, within the week, day to day to day. A couple of advantages here. Remember, the paradigm I'm trying to get you to do in the week is heavy work, first few days, lighter work, next few days, and take at least an extra day towards the end of the week, which most people do anyway, before you recycle and go to the next week. For example, if you do, let's get the most advanced split here reasonably, push, legs, pull. You go push, legs, pull 3 days heavier, push, legs, pull 3 days lighter. Sunday, as God intended, is a day of rest, and then you go again. What are the advantages here? First, you get to train heavy after the most rest. In that next week that you start, week 2, you have that extra rest day or 2 after your light work. You need to be the strongest you can be when going heavy, because being strong is the only thing that allows going heavy to happen. But do you need to be your strongest for high rep work? No, high rep work is just about cranking the reps. You just crank, you're good to go. You can do them tired, you can do them not tired. It doesn't much matter. As long as you get the volume, you're good. When you go lighter after going heavier, you reduce the injury risk of that heavy performance instead of going before, and of that light performance as well. Why? If you go lighter first half of the week, heavier on the second, you bring with you the micro tears of mini low-key super micro injury that happen in your tendons, ligaments, bone. You're not going to break your bones in training, but definitely happens to muscle. So let's say you did a bunch of sets of 15 on Tuesday. On Friday, you got to do a sets of 5 to 10. Yeah, you're mostly healed, but not quite. Some of those micro tears are now being presented with even heavier loading than in the training in which they were received. And that means, because you're going up with that level of fatigue, that literal micro tear, the probability that one of those micro tears turns into a meso and then macro tear and then gets you hurt is higher than if you went heavier first and lighter. If you go heavy first and then lighter, you didn't get hurt with the heaviest load. After a few days of rest, you go to lighter loads. How the fuck are you going to hurt with lighter loads? It's just much less likely, because heavy and light early in the week both bring in fatigue. But if you go heavy early in the week, the next thing you have to do is lighter, which means your chance of injury is just always lower. But you still get fatigue from light work and you go to heavy next, your chance of injury is now higher, for sure. It's not super high, but it's definitely a thing. Here's another problem. It's not just the micro tears. When you train, either heavy or light, doesn't matter, you accrue systemic fatigue and local fatigue. One of the problems with fatigue, or downsides, is that it makes you less well athletically coordinated at any given time. The more fatigue you have, the more clumsy you are, the less adjustment you can fluidly make during a squat, during a bench, during a dumbbell press. And so if you go heavy first in the week and a lighter after, you get to be nice and fresh and athletic and not make any fuck ups with the heavy weight. And then with the higher reps, who gives a shit? Like, you used to bench in the hundreds. Now you bench the 70s later in the week. Who cares? One goes off the other. Nothing's going to happen. But if you go higher rep in that first part of the week, that second part of the week, now you go heavy, you're tired, you're fatigued. So not only are you micro trauma experienced in your various muscles that you used, muscles a little bit torn, but also your ability to coordinate your body athletically and fluidly has declined. And that's the little adjustments that you have to make so that your body doesn't get hurt, are probabilistically going to reduce. We know that people that carry high fatigue into training have a multiply higher probability of injury. And one of the mechanisms is precisely because they're no longer as fluidly, athletically coordinated. I don't know about you guys, but I'm putting a set of fucking 7 on my back for squats. I want all my fucking mojo there. I don't want to be fucking tired from some other shit. But if I'm doing hack squats for sets of 15 after I did heavy squats earlier that week, it's just putting in work. So there's not a symmetry there. One is probably better than the other. It's probably better to go heavy first and then later. And bonus, you get that extra rest day before heavy training again next week. That's a big deal. Lighter training really fucks up your muscles, but the connective tissues, including the fascia around and inside the muscles and the tendon, they don't take as much trauma, as much damage from lighter training. So you had your heavier training early in the week. That fucked you up and it micro tore some shit. Then you have your lighter work, which isn't really a risk for injury because it's too light, but also while it definitely stimulated your muscles, it didn't beat up your connective tissues much. And then you have an extra rest day, which means the next week when you go heavy, not only did you have your last training lighter, which means it didn't fuck you up as much injury risk wise, micro tear wise, but it also, you got an extra day off that shit. And then you're really, really prepared. Probability of injury is lower. Probability of high performance is higher. Everything is really, really good. So before your next week's first heavy session, you're both going light and taking that extra rest, which maximizes performance, reduces injury risk, all really good things, versus the opposite. You go high rep first. It makes fucking low reps later hard. And also you're pre-fucked up for the low reps to fuck you up. And that's no good. No bueno. No bueno at all. All right. Let's wrap this all up with some recommendations on how to train for beginners, intermediates, and advanced. Taking all this in. So beginners, you take all the stuff that you just heard and you wipe it from your mind. Scott the Video Guy, remember Keanu Reeves was in that movie where he had store, it's called Johnny Mnemonic.
I've never actually seen that.
Okay. There was an attractive woman in an outfit I really liked at the beginning, and that's the only thing I remember about the movie.
I know what that outfit looks like without needing to see it.
Very well. Moving on. Beginners, 5 to 10 rep range is your rep range for the most part. It's enough work to get you trained and get your brain ready to do the techniques. And it's not so many reps that you get tired and break down your techniques. That's a 5 to 10 for the first 2 or 3 years of your lifting is probably all you should be doing. Probably in most cases. Intermediates should spend most of their time training somewhere between the 5 to 10 rep range and the 10 to 20 rep range. And my recommendation here is almost always train the 5 to 10 rep range before the 10 to 20, within an exercise, within a session, and within a week. For advanced folks, different scenario. Follow your stimulus to fatigue ratio and your past preferences and injury history and experience. If you're healthy and up for it and you get good SFRs from heavy training, same as intermediates applies. Heavier early. Very good. But if you're a bit banged up, if you're super strong on some movements that so strong that your injury risk is needlessly high, you can save heavy for later, or better yet, save it for never and just stick to sets of 10 to 20 for most of your work, sometimes 20 to 30. That's all I've got. Folks, in the Hypertrophy Made Simple video playlist on our channel, we have a video, number 4. It's how heavy to lift for muscle growth. So if you need a refresh on how the basics work in this, give that video a look. Like, subscribe, love, donate. Scott, do we do that thing where the people click the money thing and we get the money?
I mean, they can, but
don't do that. That's fucking weird. Spend your money on better shit. We have enough money going around. Anyway, folks, thank you so much. See you next time.